So my name is Jonathan Andrew Hume and I am in the Come From Away cast in London. I play Kevin J, Ali and others.
And how did you know that you wanted to be an actor?
So for me, I have always been interested in music and performance and just entertainment in any form, really. And my parents tell me when I was younger, when I was a little kid, that I used to dance around the living room to music all the time and try and pretend to be Michael Jackson. And I would do all these turns in the room, and there started to come these little burn marks from where my heel had started to burn into the carpet, and they were a bit frustrated, obviously, and they were trying to think of ways to get this energy out of me. And there was a local theatre school near me, and they took me to that, and literally since I went to my first class there, I just completely fell in love with it.
And what do you remember about your first professional performance?
Well, my first performance, I remember, was at that theatre school, and we were doing a pantomime. I think it was Cinderella, and I had the part of Buttons. It's a traditional British pantomime character in Cinderella, and my job was to talk to the audience and get them excited as well. And I remember that very, very well, because there was this huge cartoon character thing that came on stage that we had to sing a song and point along the words to, and I just had so much fun interacting with the audience and seeing into the audience as well, and just seeing the joy and the happiness that just came from people, from the performances that I was doing, and I just fell in love with it that way. My first professional performance was in The Lion King here in London. I started in the ensemble, and my notable part in the show was playing the back of the rhino. There were two of us in there, and I was the bum. And for me, The Lion King was this powerhouse of a musical, which told a beautiful story, and again, the audiences were just transported into this world, into the savannah, and you could see the joy that was just emanating from them. And I realised that this is exactly what I wanted to do. In the past, I'd done it, amateur-wise and stuff like that, and I was finally, I was on the West End stage, and I was performing, and I was having the time of my life, and I knew right then and there that this is what I was supposed to be doing for the rest of my life.
And how did you audition for this part?
For The Lion King? So I was in school. I was at doing my music A-levels, and a friend of mine, one of my classmates, came up to me and they said, "Oh, so I've just seen an advert in the newspaper. There's a theatre newspaper here called The Stage. I've just seen an advert in the Stage. They're auditioning for The Lion King. We should go up for it. We should go." I was like, I don't really know if we should be up for it. Like, okay, well, I'm going to go, and I really want someone to come with me. Can you come with me, please? So I said, okay, I'll come with you to the audition. And my mom said to me, well, if you're going to go, you might as well prepare something. And on the day of the audition, my friend called me up and said, "I'm really sorry, I'm not well, I'm really sick." And I thought, okay, well, I've practiced this song, I'm going to go anyway. So I went along and I stood in line, because it was an open audition. I didn't have an agent at the time. And they kept calling me back and calling me back and calling me back. And there were times where I didn't, when you're an actor, and you're in an audition room, you're performing your very, very best, and you don't actually know what they're thinking. You don't know if the smiles behind the table are genuine, or if they're just encouraging to just get you on. But I think for Lion King, I did about 7 auditions in that time for the whole process. I was lucky enough to get the job.
And what was it like to play Simba in Singapore?
So I've been with The Lion King, and graduated from ensemble and then eventually became Simba, and I played it in Singapore in 2011 for the first time. And to be on stage playing a leading man was, number one, was amazing, and then number two, to play the part of Simba, which for me was this, in a way, was kind of like a life goal. I went to see the show before I was even in it. It had just come out in London back in '99, and I went with my mom to go and see the show. And she sat next to me, and she nudged me. She said, "You know what? You could play that one day." And I just thought, no, I didn't really believe that was something that I could achieve. So when I auditioned and I was given the part, I remember literally being completely flabbergasted. When they told me in front of me, and then I went back home and I had a shower, and I just remember literally collapsing in the shower in fits of tears because I had achieved something that I never actually thought was possible. You know, in my youth, especially in my youth, I didn't really have as much confidence in myself. Theatre was very much a port of escapism for me, somewhere where I could go and act out and just be somebody else. But for something like that to happen to me was completely overwhelming. And flying over to Singapore, a place that I'd never been before, an area of the world I'd never been before, and I was introduced to different cultures, different foods, different kinds of people, and it was amazing. It was a life lesson, and Singapore turned out to be one of my most favourite places in the world to go to, and they loved the show out there. And eventually, after we closed in Singapore, I then went back and played the Simba in London, and I recently had the honour of going out for 3 months again to Singapore when the international tour went out there. So that was pretty neat as well.
You know, I have listened to Endless Night. You're performing it on YouTube so many times. It's amazing.
It's a lovely song, isn't it? Yeah, it's one of those songs where you just, it's so simple because on stage it's just simple. There's nobody else. There's no fancy set or anything like that. It's just this one character on the stage, and the words are just so powerful that is enough for that scene. And it's a beautiful, beautiful number. And in those 3.5 minutes, Simba goes on this huge journey from being depressed to happy to anxious to lost, and it was a beautiful honour to play that every single night. It was lovely.
You mentioned on Twitter that sorry if I'm not sure if I pronounced it correctly, Tia Barnes is your most influential and inspirational teacher.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a bit about working with her? And
so Thea Barnes, when I started in The Lion King in 2001, Thea Barnes was the resident dance supervisor, so she was in charge of rehearsing and making sure the dance was kept up to the standard that the creator had actually made it. And she was this beautiful, beautiful soul who literally had time for everyone, and it was almost like she could look at you and see your potential. And she looked at me back in 2001 and saw that I had so much inside me, but I just had no idea how to get it to come out. And she spent a lot of her own time working with me on dance, she introduced me to yoga. I've become more aware of my body and how the body works and everything like that. But on top of all of that academic stuff, she gave me this feeling that I could do what I didn't think I could do. You know, she never took no for an answer. She always said, right, okay, may not be able to do it now, but we'll work on it and we'll get you to do that. She was this library of knowledge, and she was just the ultimate teacher. And sadly, she passed away a few months ago, and unfortunately, she wasn't able to come and see me and come from away. But there is a moment in the show called Something's Missing towards the end of the show. And when she passed away, we were in Dublin playing the show, and that number for me is just a dedication to her. So it always means something special to me, because honestly, without a doubt, it sounds a little bit cheesy, but I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for her and her influence on my life and my craft and everything that I do.
And tell me, what's the best advice you have ever been given? Like, if you're talking about, teaching and...
The best advice, I think two things. So first of all is never stop learning. Never stop learning in the way that you will never know everything. You can be wise, you can have gone to school and read as many books as you possibly can, but when it comes to theatre especially, you do not know anything, because it's reactionary. You're reacting with somebody on stage, and if you are of the frame of mind that you know it all, you cannot allow anybody else into your space to act with you, because you're not able to learn from another person. So that's the first thing, is never stop learning. There's always things you can do. There's always new plays to read. There's always different ways to look at different things. There's always I go onto the stage and I perform this. It may be the same script, but there is always a different way to perform it, especially if you're working against somebody and they're of the same frame of mind and they're working together. You can just create magic. And the second thing is that it's more about how you present yourself, how the frame of mind you have, and that is boys and girls compete, men and women empower. Little boys and girls, they will compete with each other, and this is mine, or that's mine, I'm better than you. In this world, if you have that same mentality as you're growing up, as you become into an adult, yes, there's competitiveness, but if you think that I'm always trying to be better than somebody else, you're not actually enjoying your life. You're just constantly looking at somebody else with envy or jealousy, and just looking at yourself in a negative way of being, no, I need to be better than that person, I need to be better than that person. Whereas if we as people are empowering each other, we are sharing our knowledge, sharing our experiences, and just making each other better people and able to enjoy life in as much in the best way possible. So yeah, boys and girls compete, men and women empower.
Nice. What do you wish you knew when you were starting out?
Yeah, when I was starting out, I wish someone had told me not to take myself so seriously. I've always wanted to be the best at what I can do. I've always wanted to, I never wanted to fail. And because I had that mentality growing up, and I'm only just now at 35, just kind of learning about that myself, is that it is okay to fail. It is okay to not be perfect, because then that allows you to look at yourself and make yourself better in the future and be more proud of yourself. And also that in life is about having fun, especially when it comes to theatre as well. If you're going on stage and you are constantly thinking about, oh my gosh, I've got to get that line right, I've got to do that, you're not living in the moment. And especially in a show like Come From Away, where the storytelling is just so poignant and emotive, if you're not enjoying your time telling that story, if you're not feeling that, you're not telling the story correctly. If all you're thinking about are the notes you got from the director the other day, and I've got to get this right, that will show on stage. So I wish that someone had told me that when I was younger. Maybe maybe it's something I had to learn myself along the way, and it's gotten me to this point in time. But if I could turn back time, I'd go back and tell myself, stop taking yourself so seriously.
What is it like to play Kevin and Ali in Come From Away? What are the most rewarding aspects?
For me, it's that Kevin J and Ali are just two completely different characters. The show relies on 12 actors on the stage to tell the story of these hundreds of people. So in when we change characters, it's something as simple as taking a hat off of our head, or taking off a jacket, or putting one on, in different ways of portraying us. It's all about the physicality and the look. So for Kevin J is one half of a gay couple who have landed in Gander when they were on their way to New York. Their plane was diverted to Gander, and they are this bickering couple who are quite unsure about how the locals in Gander are going to take two American gay guys coming into their homes, and what kind of response that they would get from that. Whereas Ali is an Egyptian Muslim who, from when he lands, there is this misconception about him that because he looks like what the terrorists looked like on that fateful day, there is this feeling that he could possibly still be one of them. He was a threat. So there was this danger around him that people have of him, and they perceive him in this way, and he's very misunderstood because he's a chef. He's actually quite an accomplished chef, and he's not allowed to do something as simple as help in the kitchen because of this perception of him as a Muslim in those times. And what's beautiful about Ali's storyline throughout the show is that misconception gets dulled down to the point where he's seen for who he really is. He is a really nice person, and he is somebody who's very helpful. He's someone who is just like everybody else, who was on their way home, but is now stranded in this tiny town called Gander. And to play both of those characters, for me, is a beautiful challenge, because I've given both characters different physicalities. The way that they tell, the way they speak. Kevin J uses his hands a lot more, and he's a little bit flamboyant, whereas Ali is more reserved and kind of keeps to himself and kind of closed up inside. He's very protective of himself, especially in the environment that he's landed into. And obviously you've got the different accents. Kevin J is American, New York, and then Ali has this Egyptian accent that I've given him. And it's just a lovely it's a lovely way to play those characters with that completely different, those different ways of doing it. And after the show today, in fact, I was at Stage Door, and we have a lovely fan base for this show, and a lot of them stand outside Stage Door and they ask for autographs and tell us about how the show has impacted them. And this young girl, probably about 20 years old, came up to me in tears. And she said to me, "I just wanted to say to you how special the show was, but not just the show, how you portrayed the character of Ali and how special that was to her." And I asked her why, and she said her father is Muslim. Her father is also black, and growing up, she's always heard stories about the persecution that he, as a black Muslim, has had in his life. And to see it portrayed on stage to have a positive outcome from that, and to what we hope with the purpose of this show is to teach people about human kindness and generosity and just being nice to your fellow man, no matter what religion, race, sexuality, gender, it doesn't matter. So for her to see the character of Ali, and in her mind, her father being portrayed on stage in a positive light, meant the world to her. And for me, just hearing that is probably one of the most touching things that I can actually hear. It shows that I'm doing my job well, not just for the producers and the director, but also for the audience, who the show is actually for. And to have it touch people in such a way is just an honour and a privilege.
And okay, I have to ask you, how do you cry on cue?
How do I cry on cue? Well, there is a skill to it, and there isn't. It's not something that I can just switch on and just cry like that. There are certain things that I will think about that are personal to me that get me emotional, and in a show like Come From Away, it's not that hard to get emotional at this show, and it's quite therapeutic actually, because it does allow you to just release any sort of bad tension or anxieties or anything that might be dwindling on my heart. But honestly, the show, the storyline is just, it's hard not to get emotional with it. Kind of like what I was talking about earlier about enjoying the show and going along with the storyline and not thinking so much about the notes and where you're supposed to stand and everything like that. When you open yourself up to experiencing the emotions that are happening in the show, you do find yourself going to that place.
What was it like to meet real Come From Aways and Islanders?
So we had the pleasure of having the real Come From Aways and the real Newfoundlanders coming over for our opening nights here in London, and to meet them all was fantastic, because we've researched, in the rehearsal, we researched all about the days after 9/11 and what happened in Gander, and what you read on paper and what you hear from other people and they're that are involved in the show is one thing, but to actually hear the stories firsthand, just to meet the people that did these beautiful, generous things for people, just adds another layer onto the show. So for me and many of the cast, that performance on that opening night when those Newfoundlanders and Come From Aways were there was probably the most special, because we were seeing the show, the storyline of the show, through fresh eyes, because we'd heard things firsthand. To meet Kevin J, the real Kevin J, was just absolutely brilliant. He's a lovely, lovely guy. We're now Facebook friends, and he's just great fun. He's funny. He's generous, and he's got so much time to tell this story, because he knows that those 5 days in Gander changed his life in a huge way, and just by telling that story, just as we do on the stage 8 times a week, is changing people's minds, changing people's hearts. And hopefully, if everybody could come and see this show, just imagine how good the world would be if everyone walks out and then starts doing things of random acts of kindness for strangers.
Did you kiss the cod?
Did I kiss the cod? Yeah. I'm sure there's somewhere on Instagram or YouTube or somewhere a little video of us in the London company kissing the cod. Yeah, the couple of days before our opening night, we when the Newfoundlanders were here, they brought over some screech, some of the alcohol, and some of the foods from Newfoundland that when you're having the screech in, and we all kissed the cod. I'm surprised we didn't get sick, because this one cod just literally went around 100 people. So thankfully we escaped without getting sick. But it was a great evening, and it just brought everybody together. I think just that experience is just brilliant, and it just shows how friendly and how much life and appreciation for life Newfoundlanders have. For that to be a ceremony, for them to be an honourable Newfoundlander, it was absolutely fantastic, and it was worth kissing that smelly cod.
Is there anything you would like to talk about? We have 2 minutes left.
I basically would like to say that this show literally has shone a light on my life for myself. It's like, after researching and performing this show for the short time that we have so far, I mean, we've only really been open in London for about a month and a half. It holds a mirror up to my life, and it makes me think about, excuse me,
bless you.
Excuse me. it holds a mirror up to my life, and it makes me think about how I go about my days, how I interact with people. If there is any way that I am holding on to any sort of animosity or frustrations or anger against people, and thinking about, is that actually really worth holding on to? How about I be kind to my fellow man? How about being selfless and appreciating the blessings that I have that other people may not have, the disadvantage, being aware of the disadvantages other people have, and thinking not just, oh, I can give some money to that charity. What can I physically do myself? Whether it be grand gestures or something small, just something enough to put a smile on someone's face is also just enough. And to be a part of this show and have that feeling every single day is amazing. You know, I've been in the business for a number of years now, and I don't think I have ever worked on a job where I leave completely energized and ready to just spread love and joy. That's what this show does, and it does it for us as performers and musicians, but it also does it for the audience, and we can see the audience. And when I leave the theatre sometimes, and I'm walking past some of the theatre goers, and just hearing them talk about how the show has affected them and what they are going to do next as a result of what they've seen is just brilliant.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you.